You guys, I cannot believe that Christmas is officially over. Like, what? How did time go by so quickly? I feel like Christmas is one of those holidays where there's so much anticipation leading up to the actual day, and then it's gone, I feel like, in a blink of an eye. But here we are. Christmas is officially over, and we are just a few moments away from 2024. And I wanted to do a video talking about how to maybe reach those goals or how to maybe sustain those goals that we have for ourselves in this next year. Because I feel like a lot of us, and I say us because I definitely have fallen in this category before, where we get into the space where it's like, okay, we have all these resolutions and goals for ourselves, but by mid-January, somehow all those goals or hopes that we had for the new year are gone, or we just don't feel the motivation anymore, and we tend to give up on ourselves. So for today's video, I want to talk about how maybe reshifting our focus on a few things can make a big difference, and how it can possibly help us maintain those healthier habits and expectations that we have for ourselves. We're going to talk about 4 focus points for 2024 that will help us maintain the goals that we have set for ourselves. So let's dive on in. So normally I release videos every Monday, well, almost every Monday. However, I was like, wait, if I released it on Monday, then it's a little too late to talk about how to reshift our focus before 2024. So this video is a little bit early, and there will be no new video on Monday. With that being said, I want to talk about my professional perspective on how to maybe reshift our mindset so the goals and expectations that we have for ourselves are actually met. Now, again, if you're anything like me, you go into the new year excited and ready to completely change and to have these extremely healthy and good habits set and ready in place. However, mid-January comes and you're like, no, can't do it. I'm done. And then we just revert back to our old ways, or we don't make the progress that we're hoping to see. And then by the end of that year, you're like, oh man, not much has changed. If you have found yourself in that pattern and routine, I want to share 4 focus points with you that I think could make a huge difference for 2024. So we're going to just jump right into it. Focus point number 1, I think we need to take a look at, is focusing on the goals that you have for yourself. Now, this may sound silly because you're thinking, well, duh, that's what I do every year. However, I think with the age of technology and where we're at with social media, and no, I'm not going to bash it. I use it just as much, if not more, than you. However, I think what's happened is we look at other people's goals or expectations for themselves, and then we align ourselves with their goals, their expectations. What if I told you we can be inspired by, but we're not meant to join in other people's goals and expectations for themselves? We are so uniquely created differently, and we function differently, and our purpose is different from everybody else. So if we try to match our goals with somebody else's goals, we will almost always fall short of reaching them. So what I want us to do this time around is take some time just by ourselves and ask, what are goals that align with my purpose? What are goals that align with my passion? Heck, what are goals that align with things that I like to do, that bring me joy? What are goals that are going to challenge me mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically? Focus on goals that are meant for you. If we try to fulfill somebody else's goals, we may fulfill their goals, but we will still feel unfulfilled and frustrated because, again, those were never our goals to fulfill. Our goals need to align with our purpose, our passion, our interests. So again, focus point number 1 that I want us to lean into for 2024 is focus on your goals. So maybe take a break from social media, maybe take a break from scrolling, and for 24 hours, just allow yourself to ask the question of, what is my goal? What are my goals for 2024? And write that down somewhere, and then put those goals in places that you will see. Because I think when we have a visual representation of what our goals are, it brings a sense of excitement, but it also helps bring reminder when we are in moments where we're like, wait, what was our goal for 2024? Focus on goals that are meant for you. Okay, focus point number 2 that I want us to lean into for 2024 is focusing on our own mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual space. So focus on our capacity. This kind of goes again with focus point number 1, but I think a lot of us, and again, I say us because I'm in the same boat, we will look at other people's ability and say, okay, man, they're able to do this. And because I'm not able to do what they're able to do, I can't do anything. We compare our ability to other people's capacity. And we have to stop doing that because, again, what will happen is we will overextend ourselves to try to meet somebody else's ability, but we're overextending our capacity, and then that leads to burnout. Again, research has shown that so many people who set resolutions or goals for themselves that weren't met for them or that are too big for their mental, emotional, spiritual, physical capacity, they will end up giving up on themselves by the end of January. Now, will goals, dreams, and drive stretch our capacity? Yes. We are meant to stretch and to challenge our capacity. However, we cannot make our capacity match somebody else's capacity. I think what happens too is when we look at somebody who, let's say they're able to get up at 5 a.m. every morning, and we look at them and we're like, well, because we can't get up at 5 a.m., but we can only get up at 6:30, then we just don't even need to try, because if we can't do what they're doing, then we can't do anything at all. We are all built, again, so differently and so uniquely, and we are not meant to fit somebody else's capacity. I think another important note here, which I know we all know, but it's always good to just hear, what we're seeing online is not always the truth. Some of those 5 to 9s before my 9 to 5 are being filmed not at 5 a.m. And so we also have to put into perspective what we're constantly seeing or what we're being fed is not always truth. And so again, not only are we matching our ability to somebody's capacity, but now we're matching what we should be doing to something that doesn't even exist. Now, I'm not saying there aren't people out there who don't get up at 5 a.m. I know people who get up at 5 a.m. and just grind from the word go. However, I also think it's important to put into perspective that there are also things out there that we are seeing or feeling that aren't actually facts. So again, focus point number 2 that I want us to lean into for the new year is focus on your own mental, emotional, spiritual, physical capacity. A common example that I use when talking to my clients about this concept is if you were to start training for a marathon and you trained with somebody who has run 10 marathons, but you've never run one, it would almost be silly or crazy to expect your body to be able to keep up with somebody who has been running marathons for years and you're just starting out. If you do their training schedule and their training ritual, your body will give out because your body hasn't been trained. So if we think of it like that, where we're comparing, again, our capacity to somebody else's ability, we have no idea how long it's taken that person to lose that weight, to start getting up at that time, to do their devotionals that consistently, to be able to reach those grades and achieve the goals and careers and whatever the case may be. Okay, the third thing that I want us to focus on for 2024, and I want us to lean into so we can reach our goals for 2024, and this is a big one, is I want us to focus on the small changes that are going to implement the big change that we're wanting to see. Again, I think in this day and age, we are so addicted to the idea of immediacy. We're so addicted to the idea of, I want it and it needs to happen tomorrow or it needs to happen shortly. But did you know that change and routine and healthy habits aren't built overnight? I mean, some research shows that it takes up to at least 21 days to change a habit. But most of the time we will give up within 7 days because it's hard. It takes discipline and it takes patience and it takes consistency and it takes small steps forward. Small steps forward is still movement forward. I think we get into that mindset if we don't see a big change shortly, then there's no change at all. But small changes forward is still change forward. And we have to stop discrediting or invalidating our small steps forward and start recognizing, acknowledging, celebrating, or just even embracing the small changes. When we're able to celebrate small wins, we'll be able to steward and appreciate the big change. Because if we don't know how to acknowledge, embrace, celebrate the small steps, once we get to the big picture or the big goal, we'll still not feel satisfied because we weren't able to celebrate the small steps in the journey to the goal that we have reached. Something that I talk to my clients a lot about is when trying to implement healthy coping skills, it is one of the hardest things to do. And the unhealthy coping skills is one of the easiest go-tos because it's convenient, it gives a short-term relief, or it gives that sense of high that we're all looking for to just feel better. So things like smoking or hurting ourselves or drinking, those things make us feel better for a temporary moment, but then it leads to just rough or more negative results. But implementing healthy coping skills, you're not going to feel immediate results. You're not going to feel immediate relief or release. It almost feels like work. You're like, oh, why am I doing all this work? I just don't, it's not worth all this. I promise you it's worth it. I promise you those small steps you're taking are making a big change. It is doing something because it's still moving you forward to the goal or the dream or the purpose or the plan or the expectation that you have for yourself to be a healthier and more whole and better version of yourself. The small steps matter. The small movement forward is still movement forward. Focus point number 3 that I want us to lean into to reach those goals that we have for ourselves in 2024 is acknowledge the small steps, because it is the small steps that are going to make the big change that you're wanting to see. And then last but not least, the 4th focus point that I think is important for us to have to reach our goals in 2024, and this is the most important, I think, out of all 4 focus points, is know your why. Again, you're probably thinking, what the heck does that even mean? Or what does that look like? You can't achieve your what if you don't have a why. You can't stay anchored in the midst of a storm if you don't have your why. A lot of us give up on our goals because we never had a why that was anchoring us to keep going when things got hard. So I'll use myself as an example. My what right now is growing and creating helpful content on YouTube. It can be really frustrating and really discouraging creating and putting myself out there on YouTube because it's one of the hardest platforms to grow, at least in my opinion. And if I didn't have my why, which my why is I want to be a resource, I want to be a free resource for anybody out there who is interested in bettering their mental and emotional health, or just understanding the therapy process and understanding how spiritual health and mental and emotional health are tied in together. And then also just being a fun place for pop culture and celebrity tied into mental health as well. That's my why. If I didn't have that, and if I didn't remind myself of that when my discouraging or negative thoughts started coming, I would have given up a long time ago. My why keeps me going. My why keeps me consistent. You have to have a why of your goals. You have to have a why of what you want to do, whatever you want to accomplish. Take time after you write down your goal and what you want to accomplish, and write down and identify your why. Your why will carry you through some of the hardest seasons, because even in good seasons, even in the height of, reaching the goal and reaching the expectation and becoming the healthier version of you, there are still hard moments. There are still moments where you're going to doubt yourself, get frustrated with yourself, and so on and so forth. It's that why that's going to sustain you. So have your why. Focus point number 4 that I want us to lean into for 2024 so we can reach our goals together is know your why. If you don't have a why for your what, you will almost never reach the fullness of the what. Like I mentioned before, I love the concept of New Year's. I love the idea of going into a new year. I love the idea of a reset, of a restart. I'm somebody who thrives on the idea I get to recreate something. I get to continue on something. I get to just reset my mind, body, and soul. And so I do think it's important for us to look at the new year in such a way that it doesn't make it feel like this torturous task that we have to get through. I think some of us have fallen into that space mentally and emotionally, which is understandable, where it's like, what's 2024 going to bring? What's 2024 going to look like for me? What's 2024 going to take away from me? What's 2024 going to do, culturally and, in the world? And again, that mindset makes sense. I think the past few years that a lot of us have experienced, whether it's globally, whether it's in our community, whether it's personally, there have been a lot of heartaches. There have been a lot of fear. There has been a lot of anxiety. There has been a lot of negative and harsh things that have happened. And so that mindset makes sense. But I want to encourage us. I want to challenge us to say, I'm making some goals for myself. I'm resetting my mind, and I'm going to challenge myself to look at this new year as a new opportunity, as a reset, as a restart, as an opportunity to continue to grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. There are a lot of things in this world that we cannot control. There are a lot of things in our family, in our community, in our friend group that we cannot control. And that's hard. That is hard to recognize that so much is happening out of our control. One thing that we can control, one thing that we can focus on though, is what are we going to do to better our mental, emotional, physical, spiritual space? What are we going to do? What are some goals that we're going to set that are going to invigorate us, that are going to excite us, that are going to get us going, whether it's creatively or it's athletically or it's academically, whatever the case may be? What are things that we're putting in place that is going to make us feel excited to enter into the new year? I think the new year really is a time to reset expectations and reset strategy and reset things for ourselves that are going to make us the healthiest and best versions of ourselves that we have yet to see. I know for me, I'm wanting 2024 to be a season of growth, of strategy, of structure, of routine, of other things that I'm going to be sharing as the year goes on. I'm choosing to look at 2024 as a year of excitement, as a year of possibilities, and I'm hoping that this video encourages you to do the same. 2024 can be a really good year. 2024 can be the year where we set our goals and we reach those goals and we maintain those goals by leaning into those 4 focus points. As always, I am so honored that you guys decide to tune in, that you decide to listen. I am so thankful for each and every one of you that is part of this channel, that is a part of this family. If you're interested in all things mental health, faith, therapy, pop culture, this may be the channel for you. I would love for you to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and turn on your notifications. That way you're notified when brand new videos are out and ready for you to watch. I hope you guys have a safe and wonderful New Year's Eve and New Year's. Until next time.